Well, welcome everybody to our wonderful Candlelight Vigil. And this is, people with mental illness have always been resilient, but the one thing they've always needed to work on was connections. And tonight we're talking about the services and the people that have been connected and have had meaningful lives and purpose through resilience and understanding their education. So on mental illness, and with that, I'd like to introduce you to Lynn McCumber, the director of CHAPS.
Thank you, Sally. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here and taking your time to watch this on TV or online. This is always a very special event for us, and we're excited to share a lot of great messages. I want to first recognize and thank those who have worked hard to make the vigil happen tonight. Sally Burns, Ashlyn Lawrence, our Vista worker, the Journey Center, the Drop-In Center, Armstrong Cable, and most important, our speakers for this evening. Tonight's program is about resiliency and through connections. And never before has this been a more important topic than this year. Over the past 7 months, we have been witness to great resiliency and many amazing selfless connections. While much of our country was literally shut down, at CHAPS we realized this was not an option, as it was more important than ever to remain connected. So we found many positive and creative ways to achieve those connections. I'd like to share just a few examples. During the past 7 months, our mobile workers made sure the needs were met of some of our most fragile citizens by delivering groceries, medications, and basic supplies. We discovered the value of front porch visits, phone and Zoom calls to have friendly, supportive conversations to those who were completely alone. We made sure that anyone without housing was immediately sheltered and then assisted in obtaining permanent safe housing. We helped people get to doctors, hospitals, and other vital appointments. We prepared, not me, our wonderful managers and our drop-in center coordinator, 7 days a week, prepared over 6,000 lunches, which were either handed out in our parking lot by people who it was their one time they saw somebody each day for 3 months, or delivered about 50 lunches a day to people at their homes. And again, it was the one person they saw each day. So it was much more than the ham sandwich and fruit and cookie. I'm really proud to say that our staff was amazing, but we did not do this alone. I'm sorry. We worked in collaboration with our wonderful partners, many other agencies throughout the community, and a very generous group of citizens who donated everything from food, supplies, moral support, and monetary donations to make much of this happen. And most important of all, those we served were really our heroes. While we were helping individuals who needed support, we came to realize that they were there through phone calls and quick front porch visits, supporting each other and letting us know when their friends were in need. I believe that our success was rooted in the strength, the resilience, and the positive connections of our members. As we move forward, I used to think that, along with others, that 2021 was like the magic line and everything would be different and easy. But we now know and expect that life will continue to be challenging. But thanks to the positive connections, the resilience of our community, I know that we will be just fine. It's now my honor to ask our newest county commissioner, and I was thrilled to be able to give him a tour before our program, Eric Henry, to come up. We're very gracious. We know his schedule's very busy, and he agreed to come up and say a few words and offer a proclamation. Thank you, everyone.
Good evening. On behalf of John Christopher and Commissioner Francis Wiederspan, we do appreciate the invite. It is a very busy time, and like Lynn said, this is a different time for all of us, and there is no end line or timeline to follow. I encourage everybody to realize that people think it's over in a month or over in a year, over in 6 months. We just don't know the timeline. So it's people like you in this room that make a difference to the citizens of Crawford County who need you now, and probably more than ever. And I don't know when it'll end. I hope it ends soon. But it's been very challenging for us. So we do appreciate all that you do in the room here, and continue to try and support you any way we can. So I'd like to read the proclamation for Mental Health Week for October 2020. Whereas mental health is critical for our well-being and vitality, as well as that of our families, communities, and businesses. And whereas the President's New Freedom Commission declared that mental health disorders and mental health problems affect people of all backgrounds and all stages of life, and no one is immune. And whereas the World Health Organization found that mental illnesses rank first in terms of causing disability in the United States and collectively are the most prevalent health problem in America today, more common than cancer, lung and heart disease combined, and whereas 1 in 10 children has a serious mental health disorder that if untreated can lead to school failure, physical illness, substance abuse, and even suicide. And whereas mental health disorders such as schizophrenia, depression, and anxiety disorders are real, common, and treatable illnesses, and whereas the U.S. Surgeon General has found that a range of mental health treatments of documented efficacy exists for most mental disorders, and whereas Crawford County has made a commitment to community-based systems of mental health for all of our residents, and whereas the National Mental Health Association, the National Council for Community Behavioral Health Care, and their national partners observe Mental Health Awareness Week to raise awareness and understanding of mental health and illnesses. Therefore, the Crawford County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim October 4th through October 10th, 2020, Mental Health Awareness Week. In Crawford County, as the Commissioners, we are also called upon the Crawford County citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses and schools to recommit our community to increasing awareness and understanding of mental illness and the need for appropriate and accessible services for all people with mental illnesses. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll leave this here for you on the side?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner. I really appreciate it. And it's now my pleasure to introduce Sue Watkins, who is one of our amazing partners that we count on pretty much daily from Crawford County Human Services to share a few words. Sue?
Good evening. My name is Sue Watkins. I am the Associate Director of Crawford County Human Services. When I was asked to speak today about resilience and positive connections, I did not have to think very hard about that topic and about the message I would like to share. You see, I am also the mother of an addict. My son's addiction was a struggle for him, but it also impacted my mental health. I have seen firsthand the power of positive connections, and I have felt it for myself as well. Brene Brown is a professor at the University of Houston Graduate College of Social Work, and she specializes in social connection. She defines connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the connection. She goes on to say that resilience is the ability to bounce back after stressful situations and is strengthened when you give and receive support. My son has been struggling with addiction issues for over 14 years. I did not know he was using drugs as a teenager I did not know that his use and addiction got progressively worse after graduation. I did not really know there was a problem until he and his girlfriend moved back into my home as adults, and I found needles and burnt spoons in my house. How could I have not known? How could I have been that naive? That point was the beginning of my struggle with enabling. They say that addiction is a family disease. One person uses, but the whole family suffers. That is a very accurate statement. Once I learned about my son's addiction, I tried everything I could think of to be there, to help, to support. I cannot even explain how much time, effort, and money went into my helping, or how mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausting it was for me. What I know now is that nothing that I did was helpful. In fact, my help allowed him to continue to be an addict and to not suffer the natural consequences of his behaviors. My help was more about trying to make me feel less guilty for not knowing. How could I have not known? My son and his girlfriend were able to get jobs, and they moved out of my house. He assured me that things were getting better, he was in control of this, and there was no problem. I knew better, I knew what I saw, I knew what I heard, but I so wanted to believe him. During this time, I was struggling immensely. I was consumed by my son's addiction. I was always waiting for the next shoe to drop, the call for more help, the call from friends, the call from police officers, the call from hospitals, the call that he was dead. I secretly prayed sometimes that God would just take him, if this was not going to change but only get worse. I thought dealing with the pain of him dying would be easier than dealing with the pain of him living. What a horrible thought to be thinking as a mother. This problem was affecting every aspect of my life, but I did my best to just keep going on. I am sure some people knew that something was wrong, but very few knew exactly what I was struggling with, because I did not share it with many. How could I share this kind of a thing? Again, I felt like a horrible mother and a horrible human being for not knowing, and now for not being able to fix it. I felt at fault and to blame in some way. I finally reached a point where I had to make the decision to stop enabling. Enabling was killing me. My own mental health was at stake. I could not do it anymore. I had to limit my contact with my son because that was easier than telling him no. That was not an easy thing for me to do, and again, very few people knew about my struggles. My world came crashing down a couple of months later. My mother was in the hospital and not doing well at all. I got the call from my son that he was ready to go to rehab. I dropped everything and took him there. What a relief. He was finally admitting that he needed help. The next day, I got the call that my mom had taken a turn for the worse. She was unresponsive, and the prognosis was not looking good. My son was detoxing as my mother was dying in the hospital. To add to that, my father was admitted to the same hospital for gallbladder issues. He had been so focused on my mother that he was ignoring symptoms of his own failing health. My siblings and I ran back and forth between my mother's room and my father's room at the hospital. They eventually moved my parents to the same floor so that we could be there for them and for each other. My father was so weak that he was not able to visit my mother much at all. Then my father took a turn for the worse. He was rushed into emergency gallbladder surgery and ended up in ICU afterwards. We were told that we were lucky that he came to the hospital when he did, or he may not have made it. The thought that I could have lost both my parents at the same time is unimaginable. The decision was made to take my mother to the hospice house. My father was still in the ICU. The most emotional thing I have ever seen is when they got permission to wheel my mother into the ICU so that my father could say his goodbyes. The nurses all turned away with tears in their eyes. My mother passed away the next morning. My world had been turned upside down in a matter of 5 days. During those 5 days and for weeks after, I was also still trying to focus attention on my son, his girlfriend, and the girlfriend's family. I was trying to support them as well. While my son was in rehab, there had been a meth lab blow up at his apartment, and his girlfriend was now on the run. She was still struggling with her own addiction issues, and she did not have the help of my son. I tried to find her, to maintain contact, to convince her to get help, but I was not successful. I had to go to the apartment and clean up the mess that had been created, and move their belongings into storage, and deal with the resulting legal issues that followed. I was visiting my son and attending sessions at the rehab. I was pulled right back into helping. I was trying to remain strong on the outside when I was completely and totally broken on the inside. My son did very well in rehab and was being discharged to my home. All of his aftercare was arranged and he was presenting as pretty positive. Things were finally looking up, or so I thought. My son lasted less than a week. He broke the first rule of recovery: people, places, and things. He returned to the girlfriend who was still using. Things got worse for them. They had nowhere to live, they had burned a lot of bridges, and they had very little support. I again had to back away in order to save myself and avoid my enabling behavior. Through my son's rehab, I learned that I needed to involve myself in recovery as much as he did. I was suffering as well. My own mental health was being compromised. I entered therapy and began to learn that I could not do this alone. I needed to reach out to people, to share what was going on, to build my support system, to become connected. A lot happened after that. Things continued to get worse for my son and his girlfriend. They found a place to live, but they were still using. They found out that they were going to have a baby, but they were still using. My son freaked out on drugs and tore up a convenience store. He ended up in the hospital and he caught legal charges for his behavior. They were still using. I remained there for them, but at a distance. I remember distinctly a time when I saw my son when I went to give him his belongings. I asked him how he was doing. He said he was clean. I asked if he was going to meetings. He looked me straight in the eye and said very forcefully, "I said I am clean. I did not say I was in recovery." I did not understand the implication of that message until much later. I had to continue to lean on my own supports to get me through and to avoid falling into my enabling behavior. I had to protect my own mental health. I was no longer naive enough to think that I was strong enough to handle this on my own. Things finally did change for my son and his girlfriend with the birth of their son 4 years ago. They could not hide their using behavior anymore. They became involved with CYS and other services to help them as parents and as addicts. They willingly accepted the help. They had found their connections and they were using them. They used their supports to strengthen their family and to transform their lives. They progressed rapidly from there. Today, they have a son, they have each other, they have a home, they have family support, they have a life. My son has a good job. He recently leased his first new truck. We went on a family vacation to Disney World and they paid their way, and they do activities as a family every chance they get. They maintain the connections they have developed and they utilize them when needed. My son is now in recovery. I finally understand what that means. He attends meetings and he has a sponsor. He has his connections through Narcotics Anonymous. The support of the addictions community and their focus on recovery is a powerful thing. They truly understand the impact of connections and human compassion. I have had the honor and privilege to attend meetings to support my son, and what I have seen there is beyond amazing. Recovery is possible. My son was resilient, and his reliance on others and his connections helped him move from a very dark place to a place of light. As for me, I still struggle with reaching out, asking for help, stating my wants and needs. I am not always good with face-to-face verbal expressions. I may not be the loudest, the most outgoing, the jubilant, funny, or talkative person in the room, but I am always thinking and always feeling. Actions for me always speak louder than words. So even though I may not be able to ask for things, I try to give things and be there for others. Brene Brown explains that by being kind, loving, and helpful towards others, you are also being kind, loving, and helpful towards yourself. We can increase our social connections through practicing compassion for others as well as for ourselves. Focusing on what we can give to others is a proven way to feel better about yourself and more connected to others. We have all heard about the pay it forward or random acts of kindness movements. These are examples of reaching out and building connections for others as well as for yourself. So in an attempt to feel more connected, I try to reach out to others to make them feel special and appreciated even if they're not asking for it. This helps me maintain my own mental health. I want others to know how I feel about them. I don't want to have any regrets or missed opportunities. I want to have a positive impact on everyone I meet, whether it's a smile, a laugh, or a changed heart. I want to be somebody who makes everybody feel like a somebody. I hope to show others how I feel through my actions, even if I can't always put them into words. There are things that I treasure and things that I do for others that don't involve spoken words. I send daily inspiration quotes at work, give meaningful gifts for no real reason, invite people to have lunch, send support cards just to say I miss you, and send texts to say have a good day, thinking of you, or I love you. Please know that all of these actions mean the world to me and are way more special than words. I may not always have the words to express myself, so please look for the messages behind my actions. I am always trying to express myself even when it may seem like I am quiet, aloof, stoic, or professional. I care very much, even though I might not always say it. Look at my actions and know that they are truly the ways that I express myself. Don't overlook or miss them. We all need to try harder to find ways to normalize struggles, open up dialogues, and insert opportunities to share. Be the person you needed most when you were struggling. Be the change you would like to see in this world. Be kind always. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sue. Your honest, brave words will be a gift to many, I am sure. Thank you. It's now my honor to introduce and ask Angela Morton to come up. Angela's been, again, a longtime friend and supporter of CHAPS. She has previously been a therapist in our community mental health center and is presently with Crawford County Drug and Alcohol. We greatly enjoy all of her support and appreciate her very much. So, Angela?
Thanks for having me tonight. I'm honored to be here, and I want to say thank you, Sue, for your courage in reducing stigma against substance use, against mental health issues, because as you said, nobody is immune. So I appreciate your honesty and your courage, like Lynn said, in sharing so openly. And by doing that, the more we talk about these things, the more we reduce the stigma and the fear in addressing them, in seeking treatment for them. And as the theme for tonight is resilience through connection, I think it's important to reiterate that resilience is really just the ability to bounce back from adversity. And there's a lot of research about whether that's something that you just have. Are you born as a resilient person, or is it something you can build? And a lot of the research points to the ability to build that. Whether we're teaching a child to cope better or we're practicing new things ourselves, we can build our ability to bounce back. We can build resilience into our repertoire of coping tools. So anyone who's ever struggled with a mental health issue, substance use issue, or has known somebody who has struggled, knows that there are those moments when you're not sure you can make it, like what you had described, where you're taking care of everybody and you just don't know where the energy's coming from until sometimes a person will crash. And being mindful of where your limits are and not being afraid to reach out to others and to ask for help, to make sure that you're maintaining your treatment, whether that is through therapy or medication or both, is crucial, especially during stressful times. So understand that you can build that capacity in each other and in yourself by building connections with other people, not being afraid to ask for help. And we talk about seeking support for ourselves and each other, and it's kind of a back and forth interfacing. It's intertwined with being able to set limits, as you were talking about, setting limits with someone when you know that it's affecting your own mental health, but not being afraid to reach out and ask for help when you need to. So it requires some compassion for yourself, being open and having a little bit of understanding for what you're going through, and almost stepping back and saying, this is a lot. I'm really dealing with a lot, and I think I might be getting to my boiling point or my limit, and being able to step back. And it took me a long time to be able to say no. When you want to take care of everybody and everything around you, and at some point you need to say, I don't quite have time for that, or I would really like to be able to help, but I need to help in a way that's maybe a little smaller than you're asking of me. So setting limits, having enough compassion for yourself to keep boundaries that keep you healthy while also taking care of other people. So being open about that, your own needs, and maybe checking in with other people about their needs and not being afraid to talk about it is really important. Welcoming help is another feat, as you had shared, that being able to step back and say, I think I need a little bit of help here. And I found during a particularly difficult time in my own life that it took a lot of courage to be able to not be the person taking care of everybody else. For me to say, I'm having kind of a hard time, and I appreciate if you have some time to talk. And it was humbling. And as you mentioned, Brene Brown, one of my favorite authors and inspiring people, that it's vulnerable. And she talks about the courage to be vulnerable and let yourself be authentic and to reach out for help. So those connections that we create for ourselves are part of our ability to be resilient. Whether you're serving others within your own limits or doing something for yourself, and during a pandemic when it's particularly difficult to find those connections, whether through a FaceTime or a Zoom call or a phone call, or as you said, a porch visit or in the park, having that sense of belonging, whether in a relationship, a family, at CHAPS, in a treatment group, through AA or NA in recovery, having a sense of community and belonging is crucial to ability to be resilient and to bounce back during difficult times. So reaching out to family and friends because of your own awareness of needing to feel connected, while also reaching out to people that come to mind that may be needing your help and you don't know that. So there's a balance in that, taking care of yourself and reaching out to serve others, that really can be very uplifting. Finding a sense of purpose is also critical in being able to cope and bounce back during difficult times. And that can be through a hobby. A lot of people during the pandemic have resurrected a hobby, maybe started refinishing furniture or painting or building models or drawing, or maybe spending more time outdoors. And those are all things that when you talk with others and say, hey, what have you been doing? I've been kind of lonely, or I need something to do. And through talking with other people, you can find ways to fill some of that time and that need for a sense of feeling productive and having a sense of purpose through serving yourself in ways that you need and serving others, or building in some hobbies. So I appreciate the theme tonight, that we're recognizing and aware, as Eric read the proclamation, with awareness of how prevalent mental illness is and how no one is immune to mental illness, and everything from mild depression or anxiety to bipolar, schizophrenia, ADHD. There's long lists, and almost everybody could say that they know somebody who has struggled with mental health issues or substance abuse issues. So I appreciate the important subject of talking about connections in terms of ability to be resilient and to bounce back. Even something like tonight, being in a room with proper physical distance while we're still sharing some emotional and social connections. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to talk about this critical issue And I hope that we will all talk more about it to reduce fear and to reduce stigma and to be there for each other and for ourselves as needed. Thank you.
I just really appreciate both what you shared, and, you know, you do need that someone to talk to, that friend to reach out to. That's what all the connections are. I know through all this time, there's 3 months we were down, I was one of the lucky people that got to call people every day and to talk to them. Sometimes that was the only person that they heard, but it was also good for me. So I live alone, and so that was a wonderful thing for me, and they look forward to that call every day. And I would come into the building once in a while too, and I would see this wonderful person that's going to speak next, and that's Keegan Summer. And so we'll hear what her story is, and I know it'll be wonderful. So thank you.
Hey everybody. I'm gonna try to get through this without crying, but as most of my coworkers know, I'm a crier. So, my name is Keegan Sumser. I'm 24 years old, and I work here at CHAPS. I'm a graduate of Allegheny College. I'm a daughter, sister, girlfriend, coworker, and friend. I'm optimistic, hardworking, loyal, and kind. And I was diagnosed with depression when I was 22 years old. Although I was officially diagnosed only 2 years ago, I've been suffering from symptoms of depression since I was 12 years old. When I was in middle school, I went through my first episode of depression. It wasn't triggered by some traumatic life event that people usually associate with depression. It took its shape in the form of crying myself to sleep at night, picking fights with my friends, and sleeping at any chance I got. My naps became my escape from the world and how I was feeling inside. My parents were concerned about the sleeping, which was the only symptom that I told them about. So they took me to the doctor. They ran a bunch of tests. I was tested for anemia, thyroid issues, mono, and ultimately I was treated for mono, and we didn't think or talk about it again. My second major depressive episode was in the middle of my high school years. This time, my depression showed itself in the form of This time, my depression showed itself through feelings of extreme loneliness. I'd never felt so alone in my life, even though I had my family and a few close friends. I even thought about self-harm, though I never felt extremely enough to try it. This time, I found solace in music. When I was feeling sad or self-isolating, I would turn to my headphones and listen to my favorite artists. This led to me connecting with others who like the same artists on social media. I made tons of genuine connections and friends in this way, in a way I wasn't able to at school because of the way I was feeling. These connections made me realize that I was not alone. Other people felt the same way I did, coped in the same way through music, and it brought us closer together. These friends showed me what it meant to be resilient in the face of adversity, whether that was abuse, addiction, or losing a loved one. These connections were the first of many that paved the way for my own recovery. In 2014, I moved away from home to go to college right here in Meadville. I had the typical excitement about being away from home and having a fresh start. The first 2 years of college were filled with getting my bearings in terms of studying, working, and making friends. And it was a good thing I had the opportunity to form such genuine connections with people, because I would need that support later on. My depression reared its ugly head again sometime during my junior year. By this time, I had been working at CHAPS for almost 3 years. It wasn't until I started working at CHAPS that I truly started to understand the ins and outs of mental health. This knowledge and understanding carried over into my own life. I still wasn't ready to address my own feelings and symptoms, so I channeled my energy into supporting my friends who also suffer from various mental illnesses. I was supporting them in any way I knew how, checking in on them, talking with them, and loving them unconditionally. I was an advocate for them when they could not advocate for themselves. I was a resource for them by providing information about local support groups, the crisis line, and recovery. I was the strong friend when they needed me the most. As junior year came to an end, my friends and I had been through a lot that year in regards to our individual and collective mental health. I had decided to spend my last summer before senior year here in Meadville working at CHAPS. I was the only one of my friends that stayed that summer. So besides going to work and spending occasional time with my coworkers, I was alone. Or at least I felt that way. Senior year seemed like yet another way to start fresh and end things off the right way. The first semester went well, and it seemed like I was thriving, but something changed within me. I was starting to drink alcohol more excessively, sleep all day to avoid academic responsibilities, and even skipping class so that I could sleep more, nurse a hangover, or catch up on my work that I had been putting off. The one constant for me, though, was coming to work. It was the one thing that could get me up out of bed in the morning. It gave me a purpose, and it made me feel good to contribute to the bigger picture of helping people in the way that CHAPS does. In May of 2018, I graduated, just barely. I had wasted so much time during my senior year that I failed my senior thesis project. Although my advisor gave me a second chance to edit and submit the project during the last week of school, this incident hit me hard. Instead of encouraging me to work harder, it sent me into a further downward spiral. It wasn't until August or September when I realized I needed to do something about my mental health. I started going to therapy weekly, which was helpful since I am a talker, and I was officially diagnosed with depression. I was in denial at first, as I had been the past 10 years, but the more I thought about it and talked about it with my loved ones, I realized that all of the spells of loneliness and withdrawal from the world as I was growing up were actually depressive episodes. Once I was honest with myself, I was finally able to work toward my own recovery. In the spring of 2019, I was asked by my supervisors at CHAPS if I would like to become a certified peer specialist. I attended the training with a close coworker and friend and learned a lot about myself and my diagnosis throughout the experience as well. The connections I made there showed me what it means to be resilient and motivated me to get my driver's license, which was a big obstacle for me over the years. Although the universe had a different plan for me, and I accepted a different job position at CHAPS, I am still utilizing those skills to help others every day. I see the power of connection right here in these walls. The people I work with and the individuals we serve are all a shining example of resilience. And I would not be nearly as resilient or where I am today on my recovery journey without those connections.
I'm jumping in. I just want to make a couple of comments. Thank you, Keegan, for those beautiful words and for sharing. And I want to share a little bit too. Keegan shared a lot about herself in a way that many would never consider. But I want to share, in case anybody ever questions out there, and those that will hopefully watch this on TV or online, if you yourself or your family member is struggling from mental illness and you think, oh no, they can't have mental illness, it will get in the way of them being a productive and successful citizen, I want to tell you about Keegan. She is a program specialist for 9 or 10 individuals with intellectual disability, big job, and she is responsible for all of the very complex billing that CHAPS does for our entire agency. She's almost always the first one in the door every morning. She's perceptive, she has opinions and she shares them, which I love. She's so smart and so effective in what she does. So don't ever, ever think that your mental illness is going to get in the way of your life and your future. It absolutely does not need to, and just come and see Keegan if you ever question that. Thank you. So I now would like to introduce Kim Phillips, who is a generalist in our Journey Center Clubhouse, and throughout COVID, she has graciously supported us because we were a bit short-staffed and overwhelmed in our Housing Solutions program, working with the homeless. We had hoped we had an individual who was going to come and share, but they are working and they couldn't get off work, so that's okay too. So Kim's going to share a little bit of stories about some things happening here. Thank you. Kim?
Okay. Thank you, Lynn. All right. So as Lynn said, I work in both housing and the Journey Center. I have been here for about 8 years now, not including my work-study time, but I have a passion for supporting both programs. When I was asked to do this, my first instinct was, I don't know that I want to do that, but I think that being able to share some of the stories, and I think it has such an impact on my life and having the impact on the lives of other people. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Journey Center first. It's a site-based program here at CHAPS, place where adults can come who are experiencing mental illness. They can come for support through employment or whatever goals they have that they're experiencing. They want to build from their strengths and talents to gain certain skills to reach their goals. Our members identify goal areas such as building social connections, increasing income, looking into employment opportunities, continuing education, also looking into safe, affordable housing. We offer opportunities for them to help with running the Journey Center, cooking lunch, clerical work, running our snack shop. And by participating, this helps our members regain hope and confidence in themselves. Members take leading roles in decision making and developing the activities and programs that are offered in the Journey Center. We see amazing stories of recovery and resilience every day. And people that may have been overwhelmed at times with their symptoms and struggle to leave their homes regularly are able to get jobs and maintain them. It's not only staff that makes these outcomes possible, but the member-to-member support that helps accomplish these goals. The Journey Center is a place very much based on the idea that individuals who experience mental illness can and do recover. There have been many successes in the Journey Center, which are measurable in many different ways. We have members who are connected to us through various resources in the community. But one that has made an impact on me is a young gentleman who was referred by a family member after being hospitalized for mental health challenges over and over again. Before being active in the Journey Center, he was isolated at home and was unable to maintain employment in the community. He began working through Transitional Employment Program and is now working full-time in the community at a local business. Right now, currently the Journey Center has 39 members employed at 25 different businesses in the community. And in the past year, Journey Center members have earned a total of $191,740. It's pretty amazing. The Journey Center members prove every day that recovery is possible through resiliency, relationship building, empowerment, and hope, and making those connections with each other. Next, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about housing. I've kind of bounced back and forth between housing and the Journey Center since COVID happened. But, you know, you do what you have to do to help those. So when I first became a housing advocate 8 years ago, I had a lot of learning to do myself. But I was lucky enough to work with a woman who gave me the opportunity to kind of learn along with me to navigate these different resources together. She was very patient and welcomed the support I was able to provide her. She was recently separated from her husband and was living out of her car. She had very few belongings, no food. But we were able to navigate different resources in the community, applied for Section 8 voucher as well as disability. She had no income. We were able to obtain a place in the emergency shelter, and eventually she was able to get her Section 8 voucher. I supported her with accessing mental health resources and collaborated with her doctors to make sure she got the best care possible and followed through with a medication regimen. She now has stable housing and has been a resident of her apartment since then. She's also gotten connected with money management to help with her budgeting to make sure that she keeps that housing and is able to pay her bills and everything like that. She continues to go to her mental health appointments and reaches out to support whenever she needs it also. She maintains a positive and forward-thinking attitude while offering support to others who need it as well. My hopes are that by listening to these stories that you know recovery is possible and there is hope for the future. CHAPS utilizes a housing-first approach, which offers permanent, affordable housing as quickly as possible for persons experiencing homelessness regardless of disability. Housing Solutions also offers supportive services and connections to the community-based agencies in the area that assist consumers in maintaining housing and helps prevent returning to homelessness in the future. Some of these supportive services include increasing income in some capacity, whether that's disability, unemployment, or obtaining employment. We can also connect to mental or physical health services, accessing benefits through the local county assistance office. budgeting, accessing shelter services, and resolving child care concerns. Also, there are programs available to those who are experiencing housing crises due to COVID-19. I know that that's a big issue right now. Even, I know the evictions aren't really happening right now, but it could lead up to that in the future. We never know what's going to happen later on down the road. If you or anyone you know is experiencing homelessness or is at risk, or just want more information, I highly suggest contacting CHAPS and just asking questions. It's always helpful. That's all. Thank you.
Now, our next speaker is Nick, who works in the Journey Center too, and we'll give you the reins here.
Excuse me. Hi everyone. My name's Nick. I'm part of the Journey Center team. I've been asked to announce our art show that we'll be displaying in the community tomorrow here at CHAPS. We have a preview of some of the pieces here tonight, each thing, and then we have another display set up, but that'll be more for tomorrow. So this event, we'll be holding it in the parking lot in the corner of Liberty and Chestnut Street with social distancing in effect, of course. The theme we chose for the show is connections, coming together 6 feet apart. During the shutdown earlier this year, the Journey Center was able to use art as a way to stay connected with each other throughout the pandemic. Journey Center staff made doorstop visits with members for art supplies and for them to work on stuff at home, projects for things for the show. With home check-in visits and outreach phone calls, the Journey Center was able to stay connected with all of our members. This art show has grown from the art we created during these times. Art's something that connects us all. It gives us an opportunity to show each individual unique style and creativity. In the Journey Center, we support our members with gaining self-confidence, social connections, and overall wellness. The process of preparing this art show has been a great opportunity for our members to offer their gifts and talents for the community. We hope everyone will enjoy our exhibition of wellness through our art. We hope you're able to join us tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. over in the CHAPS parking lot. And we also, the Journey Center, would like to thank CHAPS, Meadville Fine Arts, and all of our contributing artists for their support. We'd also like to offer a special thanks to Carol Howe for helping us make this art show possible. We hope to see you all there.
Well, before we close tonight and light the candles of reflection and connection, I just want to thank all of the speakers, and there's some lovely flowers up here that you can come and pick up for doing your speaking. And I just can't say how much brave you are to share and how communicative it was, letting the community know what services we have. It's so important all the time. But when you don't get out, or people don't know about the Journey Center, or they don't know about the housing, I'm glad for Cable 13 that they will going to let people know about this, and for all the precious workers that work at CHAPS, their hearts are in recovery and reaching out to people and being those connections and finding connections for them. And I know they've been a family for me, and I appreciate that. So. With that, I think I have people that are going to light the candles, and I think we have a video that's going to play, and
when it's all piling up on you and you just can't get it right, and you don't know what you're gonna do when the money is so tight, when bad guys keep getting ahead and the government is crazy, you work 3 jobs day and night, but they're telling you you're lazy. Don't believe it, baby. Good friends gonna get you through the day. when you're running out of ways to make it through this world. Gonna get you through the day. Good friends, when you're running out of ways. There is shelter, don't be afraid. Lean on me, we've got it made. You don't gotta go it alone. You never, 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 never really on your own. So just hold out your hand. I'll take it, baby. We'll get through this jam. Good friends, gonna get you through the day. Good friends, when you're running out of ways to make it through this world. Friends, gonna get you through the day. Good friends, when you're running out of ways. One day we'll all learn to get along, and someday we'll find our way around right and wrong. And one day, one day, one day, peace on earth will come to pass. But today we just gotta get by the best that we can. And we can do it, baby. Good friends, gonna get you through the day. Good friends, when you're running out of ways to make it through this world. Friends, gonna get you through the day. Good friends, when you're running out of ways. When you're running out of ways to make it through this world. Gonna get you through the day. Good friends, when you're running out of ways. Good friends, gonna get you through the day. When you're running out of ways to make it through this world. Gonna get you through the day. Good friends, when you're running out of ways to make it through this world. Gonna get you through the day. Good friends, gonna get you, gonna get you, gonna get you. Good friends, do it, baby. Good friends, gonna get you through the day. Good friends, when you're running out of ways to make it through this world. Gonna get you through the day. Good friends, when you're running out of ways. Gonna get you through the day. Good friends, when you're running out of ways to make it through this world. Gonna get you through the day. Good friends, when you're running out of ways. Good friends, gonna get you through the day. When you're running out of ways to make it through this world. Gonna get you through the day. Good friends, good friends, when you're running out of ways to make it through this world. Gonna get you through the day. Good friends, gonna get you, gonna get you, gonna get you. Good friends,
Now, as we hold the light high, we go out and light the way and the path for everyone to have wholeness and purpose and direction in their lives. And thank you for everybody for sharing and coming and making this night special. Thank you.